You've ruined me about something, JJ, and I have to call you out for getting me stuck on the classic Hot Ones sauce, which is $15 a bottle.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Pricey.
Yeah.
You can pick it up from their store in New York. It's probably less because you don't have to pay for shipping.
I don't know if we'll get to all this.
So we got a lot.
I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. We get to it or we don't, you know?
Okay.
It's been 2 weeks, so we have a glut of topics.
It has been 2 weeks. Episode 200.
I was going to say... Oh, God.
I don't know. I've lost it. We've been off 1 week and I've lost it.
Oh, no.
That's it.
Oh, no.
I had a good run. Is
episode 267.
267. Thanks, Michael. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We Were Gamers, a podcast about sometimes games and basically what old gamers get up to on their time off.
Which includes forgetting how to count, apparently.
Hey.
I totally whiffed there because I also recorded that thing about me being able to add at the beginning and then couldn't remember 267. So that's real bad.
We didn't say we were young gamers, or we didn't say that we were gamers with spry minds or quick math skills. So, you know.
Let me tell you, I self-doubt today after playing some Celeste about whether or not I can even play games anymore.
I mean,
yes, let me drink the tears. Bring them to me.
There's no tears, but I certainly got to the point in a room where I was like, I don't know if I can make this jump.
Oh, you can make that jump.
It was like 22 minutes.
Only? Congratulations.
Yeah. More complicated by doing. Okay, sorry. What?
We're talking about Celeste now. So give me, where are y'all in Celeste?
Okay, we're going into Celeste. Hey, welcome back, JJ and Michael.
Hey, friend. How you doing?
Hey, Andy. How's it going?
Good. We've been off I know you're excited, but we've been off for a week, so we got to remind people.
We got to remind people we're talking about Celeste.
Yes, we're talking about Celeste. God, that was a lot of deaths. I made it really complicated on myself by going for the strawberry as part of the course to get through the room.
Yes.
But
sometimes it's better to come back.
But honestly, when I looked at it, it didn't make it. It made I made 2 extra jumps to get there. It's just, one of them was really tight and I had to learn it and I died on it a lot. But then after that, it was the rest of the room that killed me a bunch. It was like 20 minutes.
Which chapter are you in?
I'm still in 3. I'm decluttering the hotel currently.
Yeah. There's some really, really tough jumps in 3, or my memory of 3 anyway, which again, I haven't played this in several years, but my memory of 3 was that there is some really, really tough stuff in 3 that then, is it the next chapter, Michael? Or maybe it's 2 chapters.
The next chapter is the Ridge. And then the Mirror Temple.
Yeah, okay. It's the mirror. But the stuff gets... you get first taste of like how expansive some of the levels could be in chapter 3.
Yeah, it's... this is large, and it doesn't bother me that it's... Yeah, and there's like, I've seen the crystal heart now, but I don't know how to get there because I've only gone on one of the 3 paths. I've only finished one of the 3 paths. I don't know, and we'll talk about my controller. We'll use the controller once we're done to segue out of this. But I don't know, sometimes that red goop or whatever it is, the red outlined black things that kill you in level 3 that are attached to the edges of the level don't seem like they're there when they kill me. It looks like maybe their little undulating lines actually are still present in the positions they look like they are not. And so sometimes I'll do what I think clears a jump, but actually I still get killed.
Are you trying to say that the hitbox is bigger than it appears,
The
or that
hitbox-
it's smaller than it appears?
I think that the hitbox is static, or it could be that I'm just bad and not noticing it, but it feels like the hitbox is a square, even though the thing inside of it looks like it's like
Oh, I see.
somewhat
You think you
moving
can
around
squeeze by
amoeba.
as it wiggles,
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I cleared that wiggle. Oh no, I think the hitbox is still there. All that to say that I don't know if I'm a platformer anymore. I just like, oh my god.
This is not exactly an easy platformer though, so I don't know if this is the one to judge.
And I really want to be clear: the strawberries aren't necessary for the game in any respect. I don't think there's a single thing you get by getting the strawberries other than happiness, or the strawberries themselves. They do nothing for you.
I don't believe so. Not like the hearts.
The hearts have a purpose in unlocking stuff near the very end of the game, and the strawberries do nothing. So, you know, they are cool and they do make some of those rooms very challenging, but it's not necessary. And you can always come back later, at which point you will have played a lot more Celeste and understand a lot more about the game, perhaps.
You know what though? Like I don't begrudge. It made me understand and brought me back because I took a week of vacation. We all did. We'll find out what we all got up to a little bit. And I hadn't played in over a week, and I wanted to play tonight because I want to bust out. I got 2 new controllers. I got the Elite Series 2, and I also ended up getting the Brawler. We'll talk about that in a bit too. And I wanted to like get back into Celeste before I got out the Elite Series 2. And I was using my other controller, and so like I blame a little bit on that. And what I liked about going for that strawberry was like remembering how to wall slide a little bit to line up and kind of like get the jump distance of the short jump versus the hold jump and all that sort of stuff remembered for playing this week, right? Because like you're out of a rhythm if you don't play that type of game for a while. There's no way to, I mean, it builds on itself. So if you don't keep the skills active the entire time you're playing it, good luck dropping into World 4 after a month off. You know, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. I definitely got a sense of what JJ you were talking about, of coming back later after you've learned some of the more difficult things and finding things easier. So I got all the way up to chapter 9 and got as far as I could with the number of hearts that I had, and then found myself gated, and so I had to go back and start doing B-sides
To get more stuff?
to get more hearts.
The hearts.
Oh, there's more hearts on B-sides?
The B-side ends with an unmissable heart. That's the end of each B-side.
Oh, okay. So that's the,
So you
that's
don't
the
ha- you
benefit
don't-
of doing a B-side.
Yeah, there are no strawberries.
Yeah, you don't have to find the crazily hidden first hearts. I think you could get them all from B-sides if you needed to.
Yep. Yeah, but you have to. The trick with the B-side is that you have to get through it.
The B-sides are tougher platforming and
Bigger
typically
rooms.
Also sometimes there's timing involved, or more timing perhaps. I don't know if Andrew, you have gotten to it in level 3 there, but there are certainly rooms where like when you start your jump and your run matters,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't remember when they start with like moving pieces and stuff that is like on timers.
They do a
Yeah,
good
that's in
job.
3.
Yeah, they started in 3. They do a good job in 3 of, if they make the room big, giving you a place to rest,
Yeah.
where you can like take a breath and kind of get your bearings again. But there's definitely parts of 3 where it's like, all right, I got to learn the first part of this room, and then I'm going to die because I haven't learned the last half of this room. I got to figure out the timing of all of these jumps together.
Right. And the B-side will do something similar, but like that middle platform might be gone.
Right.
Or they will have the previously static block that you would stand on for a while you thought about the room is now moving in some pattern.
Or yeah, false.
Or
it falls. Yeah.
or any number of other such things, right? The previous thing that would refill your jump is just gone now.
I see.
Or stuff like that. And it's not, in some cases, they are all new levels and rooms as well. But more often, it's like really increased difficulty versions of previous rooms.
Okay.
So, yeah, so there is benefit to finding and doing that stuff. And I think you always have to complete the level the first time to do a B-side. Is that correct? Yeah, because you have to get the tape, right?
Yeah, you have to get the tape, but you don't. I think if you quit out to the map, you keep the tape. You don't have to get to the end of the level.
I only have one tape.
Oh, okay.
Well,
you've only done 2 levels complete, right? So
yeah,
the tapes are hidden.
Okay.
And they are, yeah.
Got it.
I will say the tapes are easier to find than the hearts, to my experience, anyway.
Interesting. Yes. All right. I don't know. I mean, I'm distinctly not looking at guides and stuff. So whatever you guys tell me, I believe.
That's the right way to do it, in my opinion. Go in there, learn what you can learn, and sometimes you're going to die for 20 minutes on a room. That's just part of the game.
I didn't feel discouraged.
Yeah, and I bet you came away like understanding more about how the character controls, like exactly what size jump you can get away with, exactly how far that arc goes, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And knowing that is going to help you later, for sure.
Yeah, I just good point you made there, Michael, about Celeste not being maybe a typical platformer. But it still made me feel like, oh man, I think I played stuff harder than this when I was younger. But, who knows?
Yeah.
There are
people... different kind of difficulty, I think.
There are people out there, however, taking a game like this and making us look silly.
GDQ. There are ROM hacks for Celeste, you guys.
Oh, yeah?
I think they did some at GDQ this year. I think I caught some of that.
They
did a special level run.
And let me tell you, if you thought regular levels of Celeste were hard, don't look at these.
It's just memory, right? Like the only way to do these is from memory.
No, I would, yes, but also someone has to do it the first time.
Right. But like to perform it at a GDQ.
I'm sure these people practice for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and
hours. I tried not to watch too much of it because I didn't want anything spoiled or whatever, but I couldn't not watch a little bit of it. And boy, that was nuts.
Yeah, you get to see some of the advanced movement mechanics that are possible in Celeste that you don't necessarily need for the base game.
Yeah, I want to say, did either of you pick up on any of that advanced movement tech? Because that stuff is in the base game. You can do it in level 1.
Yeah, so some of it I have seen before or done inadvertently. Once or twice I've managed a spike jump without really trying to do it. I know I've done the like bounce yourself off the floor to go forward really fast movement.
I've done that one accidentally.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
So so that's kind of where I got to that point. I didn't come to it until later in the run where I started noticing that in a certain place, I would always get a jump that seemed way farther than normal just on how I was going through that part of the level.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why is this jump crazy? And none of these other jumps can do this. Like I can never get that distance, and it always works right here. Or not always, but like it seemed to always happen there. And I was doing the corner thing off of this one box without knowing, and like catapulting myself across over a gap that, well, I guess you're obviously supposed to be able to clear that way, but I think they intended for you to stand on top of the box and run instead of doing what I was doing. And I was like, why is this happening? And it was just, I had gotten it to the point where I could just always do it, but I don't know how I arrived there. And I was just so puzzled because it was different from how I'd played for so long.
Huh.
And then like come to find out, like, once I had completed the game, not using that jump ever again because I could never replicate it anywhere else. Like, oh, this is like a thing that you can do.
Nice.
And yeah, that game has some crazy stuff, man. And I didn't catch so many of the runs from GDQ this year, though. Yeah, any recommendations from you guys out there for stuff that was really cool?
It started while I was gone, so I missed a good half of it. Michael will have better answers because I had not great service out in the camping wilds.
Yeah, I caught a couple of runs probably each day. For you, JJ, the Hitman 3 run was good.
Okay. I
Um,
really wish Hitman 3 would come out on my preferred platform where I own the other two versions of Hitman so that I could play them all together.
that would probably be nice.
Never say die.
Um, trying to think what else did I watch
Vanquish
that
was
was
crazy to
good.
watch.
Oh, yes. I did see parts of Vanquish. Vanquish is cool.
Yeah.
That game is just cool.
That game is weird. I wouldn't have played it. I would definitely not have played it. But now having watched it, I was like, I'm glad I watched it. You know? That's one of those
I think
inadvertent benefits of GDQ a little bit.
Do I own Vanquish?
Un-
I think I do.
Unlikely. Where would you own it? Is it on Steam
I
nowadays?
own Vanquish on Steam.
You sure
yes,
Oh wow!
I sure do.
You should play it. It seems like
I have
you'd
played
like
it for. I have played it for 5.4 hours.
that.
I'm pretty sure I've beaten this game.
Oh, really? Because I was going to say that probably
Yeah.
sounds to me like
Yeah, I have a trophy that says completed all acts.
Oh, interesting. I just opened Steam. I didn't realize Monster Hunter Story was on Steam as well.
It is.
Oh,
Yep. Yeah.
that's weird because the first game's only available on the DS. Unless they moved it over here.
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. All right. Sure. Go ahead, Monster Hunter Stories. You do you.
Yeah, I don't think they're connected, other than to say they have the name Monster Hunter Stories. So
Oh, I see. Okay. They got me then. I watched the Kingdom. You won't care. The Kingdom Hearts 2 run.
I caught a chunk of the middle of that one.
To me, it was very impressive because he does the whole thing at level 1. And watching someone do the game at level 1 makes you realize that when you're playing it and you're level 50, you should be doing better than you are.
why am I so bad at level 50? This guy is killing everything at level 1.
I mean, I feel like the entirety of GDQ is just a clinic in why am I so bad?
Yeah. Well, it teaches you something about the game, too. You know, like we were talking about at Movement Tech and Celeste, and he was like, okay, so Reflect is an overpowered spell. You just have to know when to use it right. And they talk about the mechanics of how a boss works with their revenge moves and how you can bait them into doing their most damage to themselves with Reflect. It's like, oh, okay. Interesting. I will be good at this game now. Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't catch a whole bunch. It was, another online GDQ, so easier even to go find all the VODs and everything because they were probably just being done right then.
Yeah, I didn't. I think there are some awesome things that get brought because of the online GDQs, right? We remember in previous years seeing Happy Feets,
Oh, yeah.
and some
Who
of
was
those
not there this year, sadly.
Well,
This
I
time
noticed.
around. Different dance game.
different dance game.
Yeah. Which again, got to highlight other people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I think there is something lost when it's all just like people being streamers essentially,
Mm-hmm.
rather than doing it in front of an audience and having a crowd and cheering and all that.
Okay.
Yeah, you
And-
do kind of miss that.
Especially if I'm watching a stream of it, if what I'm basically just seeing is a person streaming a game, I'm already on twitch.tv. There's like 800,000 other people also doing that, many of whom I find more entertaining than the person who is doing the GDQ.
Yeah, it becomes
right?
more about picking and choosing than like watching the event unfolding.
Yeah. And so then it's like, oh, what are they doing a game I'm particularly interested in? And then that will keep my interest rather than necessarily the runners or the commentators. And there have always been great runners and commentators every year. I just found like the times when I was available and tuning in, I was not always so interested in what was going on.
The Scottish guy, the Sonic dude was there as a commentator, not as a runner. So sometimes you would also be looking for a runner, right? Or a game, and in the past you'd flick it on and you'd see all the people on the couch and you'd be like, oh yeah, that guy's there, I'll watch that, because this happens all the time with like Spike, right? Spike Vegeta's sitting on the couch, I'll sit and watch this because he'll be entertaining,
Right.
right? And so
And like a lot of the people that I ended up following after GDQs in the past have like moved away from speedrunning over the years, and they just like they don't even apply for GDQs anymore because they don't do speedrunning. They've just moved on to standard streaming stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I still find those people entertaining, but like obviously they're not at GDQ. They don't speedrun anything anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't the speedrun that made them entertaining. It was their personality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you do want to see an impressive one, JJ, watch the Super Mario 64 70-star blindfolded run.
Oh, I caught part of that. I am going to go watch that because the part I saw was awesome, and I'm like, okay, I got to check the rest.
It's unbelievable. I watched for probably 20 minutes, half an hour, and there were so many times where I think I got into it because there were so many times where I had the feeling, oh no, he moved somewhere he shouldn't have and doesn't realize that he's about to die. But no, it was all calculated.
Wow.
Yeah, that stuff is unbelievable.
Especially
in a big 3D game like that, and a 3D game that's wonky like that one.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
It's well worth the time.
Awesome. Okay. Well, if anyone saw other GDQ runs that we should go check out, let us know. Still a great event. I think we still supported it. I still supported it, etc. And hopefully, I think they announced at the end of this one that they have decided that as long as things continue the way they're going, they'll likely return to in-person in winter. So
January 9th.
Yep.
2022.
Okay.
That's what they say. We'll see what that means. I likely will not go personally, but it is starting to be that time of people announcing that stuff. So. All right. Speaking of back in person, and some people take vacations to go see SGDQ and AGDQ. What'd you guys do for your vacations? I want to know. I visited the carb locker. That's what I did.
A wonderful place to go.
The carb locker. Carb locker. Michael.
Yeah, we actually returned to the birthplace of the carb locker.
Did you really?
Yeah. So we debated doing a couple of different things for the 4th and settled on, you know what, why don't we, since we didn't get to do it last year, why don't we try and go back and do what we've done for several years running, which is go to the top of the Disneyland parking structure.
Okay.
Because it gives you a great 180-degree view of a large chunk of Orange County. And you can see all the fireworks that people are setting off, which was copious this year.
Likely.
I think kind of in reaction to not being able to do it last year.
What? Not being able to do what last year?
Well, hold big fireworks shows.
The people across from me held a very large fireworks show last year, which is why we went out of town this year.
So I don't know how this is, yet the local fireworks show to me was canceled due to insufficient permits or something. And then the other, the big one down in San Diego Bay went off apparently fine. But there were no real shows near me, and my proximity to Tijuana, where I assume a lot of these fireworks come from, is much closer, and yet the amount of fireworks here is so much less. Do people just travel through and leave?
I don't know.
And it's
Maybe.
The firework transports don't stop here.
They make their way to LA because that's where they blew up 5,000. They found 5,000 pounds in a Los Angeles neighborhood, and ended up accidentally blowing up their own truck. Trying to dispose of them. Yeah. So maybe they do. Maybe they just drive on through with them, JJ.
I guess so, man.
That's cool. And yeah, I didn't revisit the carb locker location. I just meant we made a lot of really filling foods, and let me just say, you can make pretty good leftovers with scallops if you chop them up into some mac and cheese. That's all I have to say about the carb locker.
Oh, I bet.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you didn't eat 75 hot dogs, though.
No. Did he? Oh, I didn't even look it up after we got back. Did he eat 75 hot dogs?
He broke his record. I think it was 75. He broke his record of last year by one hot dog.
Why keep going?
he has something to prove to himself, I guess, because
Stay on top,
no one
I
else
guess.
is close. I think the next closest person is at like 50.
Yeah. Why keep going? I don't know why. Good for Joey Chestnut. He's got what? 1, 2, 3,
14 hot dog titles, Nathan's titles.
14 titles. Yep.
Yeah.
That's enough. Well, no, it's not.
76.
He's got to go.
76 hot
He's got to
dogs.
go for one more to get the 15, right? The nice round 15. I don't know. Speaking of food, JJ, food has to be kept cold in a fridge. Tell me about your fridge. I need to know what you broke and what you fixed. Because you showed a picture. We talked about some multimeter work last week, and I didn't know what it was for.
So we have 2 wine cooler / refrigerator devices in our house. One is quite a bit smaller and has been operating without issue. The larger one at some point started making a clicking noise when you would think that maybe the compressor was attempting to engage and that it didn't engage. And the clicking noise would happen like once, and then it would be silence for a while.
Okay.
Until I guess it decided to try again at some point later in the future, and you would hear it click. And then the inside was never cold, right? It's just like it stopped being cold in there. It didn't work. So I Googled around a little bit about this refrigerator and like the motor and the various components inside and whatnot. And most of the things seemed to say that like, hey, call their customer service, see what they tell you, see if they'll replace it for free. They won't, but ask anyway. And then before you go to a service people, try to do these relatively easy things if you have this set of tools. It's like, all right, I own a multimeter. It's a really crappy multimeter, but I own one. And I tell you, it was $5 or something. It is barely working. It's a piece of plastic garbage.
I have one of those.
But it works.
And I have a good one. And I don't know why I haven't thrown out the bad one. It's just...
So let me tell you, maybe there's a reason to keep the bad one. Is if you don't know what you're doing and you're afraid you're going to cause a spark. A bad multimeter getting destroyed is fine. A good one could be expensive.
I see. Did we learn this by example?
A little, but I already knew that I didn't know what it was. Well, it wasn't a big spark. It was a little spark, right? But I already knew I didn't know what I was doing, right? And so I was like cautious. So no one was hurt. Nothing was injured other than my vision for about a couple seconds and the tip of the multimeter. Sorry, one of the leads, the red lead specifically.
Okay.
And so what I learned through all of this is that a lot of instances when refrigerators break, what actually broke is not the motor, the compressor that runs and actually gets it cold. It's this thing called the overload and relay circuit. And these are 2 little devices that are plugged into the side of the compressor where the power comes in that essentially prevents like voltage spikes and other weird electrical problems from getting in and actually harming the motor itself, right? These components break after years of use or abuse or voltage spikes or whatever, right? And they can be replaced with some effort, but not impossible effort that a human could easily do. And with like household tools, you just need like a screwdriver and a multimeter would be helpful, and like a couple other things. You don't actually need the multimeter to replace them, but it's going to tell you if the compressor is actually broken, the multimeter will tell you that.
I see.
And once you pull these 2 pieces off, you can test the leads of the compressor completely safety, right? Unplug everything first. Don't be an idiot. Yeah. But like once you've taken all this stuff out and unplugged these things, this overload and relay from the compressor, it's perfectly safe to test the leads of the compressor with the multimeter set to an ohmmeter. And as long as there's certain levels of resistance between these 3 poles, the compressor is probably still good. So I determined the compressor was still good. Yay. It's the big motor. It's expensive probably.
Yeah. The compressor for an older fridge, you're just talking about getting rid of it at that point.
Correct. Yes.
There's no benefit really that no one wants to
unless you are super attached to that form factor, you should toss the thing and get a new
Right.
one. So I was not super attached to this wine refrigerator, but I figured if these parts, and again, looking at them, like I went on Amazon, is like, how much do these parts cost really? Okay, so like the salesperson from the customer service line was like, oh, we'll ship them to you. It's only like $60. I'm like, all right, well, that's a lot, but I don't know how much these things actually are. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. And then I looked them up online. It's $15 for both.
Sure.
Right?
Of course.
Okay, so let's do this. So I order $15 parts from God knows where, China, I assume. They arrive in 2 days, so they're plentiful already over here. It's not like they had to ship it across the sea. And I'm like, all right, let's try this. I'm going to install these things, which took a little bit of doing. It required also a wrench, I recommend. The little I don't know if you guys have ever seen electrical, like, what they call them, like tongue connectors.
Oh, the ones you have to kind of like clamp underneath a screw? Or
so
they plug
like
into those slots.
slot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they clamp down on the slot.
Yep. And you pinch it down with pliers.
Yeah, so you really want to get something that can like loosen those things, and they're typically covered with plastic all the way down to the edge, which then makes it really hard to loosen, right? So you got to cut the plastic off or tear it off, and then like loosen this thing to a level where it can come out and you can get it off, and then you can clamp it back on later. That part took way longer than the rest of everything else combined. So make a note. So I replaced these two things. It took, a couple hours. Most of that time, again, trying to unclamp these things and reclamp them. That was the hardest part, for sure. Some of them had like this little, you're supposed to poke it with a pin or a screw head or a screw pointy end or something, because that's how it's being stuck in this hole. There's all kinds of weird ones of these things. Anyway, look them up if you're interested. Do only the ones that matter for your refrigerator. Don't ever try to find more of these things. They were a horrible pain. But I replaced this thing with these new parts, and I plug it back in, and voila, the motor turns on like immediately.
Success.
Nice.
And because the other option, right, was like, if this didn't work, the next thing the person was like, the next piece that could probably be wrong, because again, the compressors, they are there. The person's like, the compressors are pretty bulletproof. Like those things dying would be super rare. The next thing is like the control board, which again, you can get to, but is going to require quite a bit more work, and that piece is not cheap like these were. Right? Okay.
I'm sure that's probably one of the more expensive components.
Probably not. Again, the compressor is probably still more, but it is one of those components that like you need to get the specific one for the very specific refrigerator you have.
Time to throw it out.
Possibly, because again, these relay components are used in tons of refrigerators. And like this one that I ordered had like a list of models, and it was just like normal refrigerators on here. They didn't even list this like wine cooler thing that I had. So these are very commonly used across lots of different types of refrigerators. So anyway, and it worked, and I was like stoked because I didn't want to have to deal with trying to buy a new one and figure out like what kind do we want, and then we probably should get a nicer one and a whole bunch of other things. So if this buys us a couple more years, wonderful. It was $15 well spent. Right?
Yeah. And you get a great story out of it, in my opinion.
I get to feel like I accomplished something with my electrical engineering. Go me.
Hey.
Yeah. Nice. I didn't get up to anything as interesting as that during the break. But I did have a lot of time to think. I really don't like the D-pad on the Switch Pro controller. Are you guys ready to finish off our controller chat?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's knock it out.
It's time. It's time to do part 3. Components, controllers. I put up Tetris 99 again after now that I have the Hori controller, the Switch Pro controller, and the standard Joy-Cons. I am not alone in the internet with saying that the Pro controller makes a lot of accidental movements on the D-pad.
Yeah, it's not the best D-pad out there, for sure. I won't even attempt to defend it.
It's basically unusable in Tetris. I'm not saying it's unusable in general, and it actually has kind of a nice firm feel compared to the Hori one. less stiff than the Joy-Con one. It's nice in terms of the way that it feels, but it just is, it activates too easily on different directions when you're not even pressing them. So,
which for a game like Tetris
yeah,
99
there's
is
plenty of times I accidentally drop, and it's like, well, I don't know what to do now. That dropped 4 spaces to the right of what I was thinking. I don't know. Anyway, so that leads me into our discussion, games with controllers and games without. And I would never play Tetris without a controller. I feel like maybe someone who is way better than me, I think the pro guys play it on keyboards.
I mean, what kind of Tetris are you talking?
I mean, like any Tetris I would play. Tetris Effect is on Xbox, whatever you call it, Game Pass.
I think it's on a bunch of stuff. It's on PC and Steam and a bunch of stuff now.
And Tetris 99, these types of things. I would, even if not having the choice, I would prefer to play with a controller, I think, just because it's less mentally draining to me. But I think some of the pros actually play it on a keyboard because the just easier with the 3 buttons, 4 buttons there, or whatever. You could set the buttons to be whatever you want,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just to lead off our discussion that we had talked about specific games last time, 1 or 2 that, or JJ had said, games that originally were designed for a controller. I think Skyrim was the example of games that just didn't, in some people's opinions, translate well to a keyboard and mouse. I think Skyrim was fine overall, personally, but there were definite benefits to the controller on some games. So my answer to the question is, often shooters, when they're not competitive, I'll just relax with a controller. Platforming, obviously, I think I would rather do on a controller. And those come from the movement generation, and I think we talked about aim assist on a controller, and the way they were created for keeping things cross-platform and fair against mouse and keyboard players, and the fact that you just can't keep up with a controller sometimes. And then games like a Tetris game where quick reaction might be a little bit more important. And get to the end of Tetris 99, you really need to be like not even thinking. You have to see the piece and know where it's going before it comes down. Like before it hits the screen almost.
It's almost instinct, right? You don't really have the chance to plan.
Yeah, and so the controller takes the am I pushing the right button kind of out of the equation. It's supposed to anyway. So that's my short answer for that one. What do you guys think?
Gosh, like I said, I think that I've sort of brought up a lot of the, the stuff that I think is important to play, how the game was designed and that kind of stuff. And that really sort of guides my, I don't know, the way that I end up playing games. And I play most of my games on PC these days. And, I still have the Switch, but I use almost exclusively the Pro Controller for that. But notably, I am not deep into Tetris 99 like Andrew is.
I'm not that deep into it.
Bro, you've played a ton of hours.
Sure,
of
but
game.
I don't play it consistently. I wouldn't call it deep if you don't play it consistently.
I would call it very deep, considering you've played 10 times or 15 or 20 times the number of hours I have played.
Is it just deep because I could beat you? Is that the answer?
Anyone can beat me at that game. I'm terrible. A young child is likely to beat me at Tetris. I'm terrible at Tetris.
Well, I'm
Didn't a young child beat all of us at Tetris?
Oh, wait. Yeah. Hey, I remember this. This is years ago. But yeah, we all got smoked by that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Don't worry. I'm training one of my
Tetris.
young children. So someday we'll see the answer to this question live.
Wonderful.
She likes Tetris, so we're giving it a shot and see if she likes it enough.
Good start.
Yeah.
My point is that I wouldn't notice the bad inputs on Tetris because I am so bad. I would just assume that I am being bad.
I see.
And I would not notice the slipping inputs,
Yeah.
right? And the rest of the kinds of games that I play on there, like Fire Emblem, I'm not going to notice a missing input on Fire Emblem because if it goes over one square too far, I move back before hitting confirm.
I'm starting to wonder on this scuff. When I was in that room for 20 minutes, sometimes I would slide the wall and I'd hit jump and then I wouldn't jump. And I thought to myself, maybe I'm just getting tired of this room. But maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the Elite too. Anyway, I didn't mean cut off your thought here.
No, that was kind of all I was going for, is that like I don't have... It's more the other case for me on PC is like, am I going to use a mouse and keyboard for this when I'm on the PC?
Okay.
And the answer is, if the game came out on a console, I'm probably going to use a console or, a controller.
Yeah, that's what we talked about last time. You said this. Yeah.
Yeah. So then like the only cases where it gets questionable then is stuff that like, okay, it was clearly designed, like it came out on the PC and the console at the same time. But they like, maybe it has more features or was ported to the console later and I'm buying it, way later after the fact. And then it's a question mark of like, okay, well, like they definitely have done work to make it work with controllers now, but like, was that how they intended me to play it? Or do I need to care how they intended me to play it? Which way plays better? Like that kind of stuff. So I'm playing like a game that clearly benefits from having a mouse and keyboard, something like Loop Hero, right?
Yep.
That game is on consoles, I'm pretty sure. I just don't know how you would do it.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Michael?
I think for me, what I use between controller or mouse and keyboard is kind of informed by how I grew up playing games. I think I, less than you two, played PC games when I was younger. I didn't really get into it much until I got older. I was mostly just a console player.
You didn't play hours and hours and hours of StarCraft?
I mean, StarCraft was probably the first one that I got into.
No rush, man. No rush.
Besides StarCraft, I think the majority of what I played were things like the Dig and Myst games that were like point and click puzzle games. Things that would have been really difficult to do on a console, that I think these days lend themselves well to things like being on a touch screen.
Oh.
But yeah, back then the mouse and keyboard was really the only way to play a game like that. And so I think there was always kind of a stark divide for me between the things that I like to play on PC and then the games that I like to play on console, which were mostly platformers. Which lend themselves better to controllers, because how can I jerk my keyboard to the side to make my character jump just that little bit?
I knew
if I don't have a controller.
Yeah, I felt that.
I've gotten so much better at that now. The fact that the side button on that SCUF controller goes off so easily, I've gotten so much better at keeping my hands as still as possible when playing Warzone, right? And so it has kept my hands very still now when playing Celeste. I don't do the like, oh, I'm gonna make the jump lean. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which, maybe makes you worse at the game. I don't know. Who knows?
Probably doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
Else.
Okay, so if we're on our PCs, we're using our controllers. Something we haven't talked about yet is mapping and customs. Do you guys remap ever? Even on your console, do you remap from the default controls ever? And if so...
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Why?
Yeah, I do because I'll give you two examples. One I just went through. So I was setting up the controllers for Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, and the default control schemes don't match each other. And that bothers me. Or I know in advance that it will bother me. So I remapped the second game to match the defaults from the first game.
That's good.
Okay. Yeah.
But more generally than that, I like the accept button and the cancel button to be in specific places.
Oh, which way? Sony or Nintendo?
So I like whatever the bottommost button is, I like to be accept, and then the rightmost button to be cancel.
Anti Nintendo. So have you reset your Switch?
No, I haven't. I've just learned to play that as it is.
Because you can. That's what that was going to be my follow up question to anybody that said this was you have the option to do that to your Switch.
And I'm aware. Okay. Yeah.
But it's not something that you find. I leave mine alone. I kind of like the nature of it, but I know a lot of people that have switched those, and like with a PC, you can remap all sorts of buttons to be whatever you want them to be.
So I only have a very few examples where I have done kinds of remaps outside of the like X and square or reverse because this game is weird and from Japan or whatever situation. Or wait, X
and circle.
X and circle on a PlayStation controller, or A and B on a Nintendo/Xbox.
Yep.
And that's the like standard one. I agree with Michael's. Bottommost button is confirm, and the one up and to the right of that is cancel.
Yeah, it's thumb position when you're holding, because I'm right-handed. So when I'm holding the controller, especially if I'm going through a bunch of dialogue, I don't want to have to reach to hit the button.
That is at least the configuration I have learned in my mind. Yeah. However, just like Michael, I also have not changed it on my Switch. The cases where I do make more remappings than just that one are cases where like game series I have played and they change the controls from like the first one to the second one, like Michael was talking about here. Or they change, they add some new feature, but I liked the old control where it was. And they move stuff around. And typically in those instances, I was like, okay, I really liked having the turbo button when I click the stick, or I really liked having, the jump button on this button. And now they put some new thing there and move jump over here. Like that. Those are the only instances where I do those kinds of remapping, because it's like, I would just finish the other one. I know that this one does this. Why did you move it? I get that there were 5 years there in between and I didn't see those, but like I'm here and I want to play, the same way between the games or the way that I sort of already am accustomed to it. So those are kind of the only times I really touch it. I really am a default control guy most of the time.
Well, I have a question for the two of you, which is, speaking of remapping, inverted camera, yes or no?
No. Never.
No, what?
Never invert the Y. Never.
Unless it's a flight sim.
No. I leave it uninverted in a flight sim unless I'm going to play on an actual HOTAS.
My brain only works with it inverted for flight sims. I don't know why.
Oh, weird.
Interesting.
I can't make the plane do the right thing.
Most flight sims are so arcadey, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, fair. I guess I also work with planes, so.
Yeah. Yeah, true. You just mentioned the turbo button. I want to get back to that after I say I will remap shooters to all work the same way.
So I was going to ask you if you do that. What way? Because most shooters now have multiple presets that I've seen, and the presets correspond to like, this is Halo, this is Call of Duty, this is whatever.
I don't know what games do it. I noticed that I have to remap Gears of War a bunch of times because the way they reload in that game is different than every other game because it's an active thing that you have to do. You have to like react. It's a reaction command. But generally speaking, I want to zoom with my left bottom trigger, fire with my right bottom trigger. And then, secondaries and grenades and stuff like that on the other bumper buttons.
Those are the Call of Duty defaults.
Right. And they're also
left trigger, right trigger is the Call of Duty hallmark.
And it's also Halo. And if it's not Halo, then I've remapped my Halo to work that way.
You have remapped your Halo. Well, so I think the more modern Halos have adopted that, but the original Halo did not work that way.
I think when we played Halo, I played the first couple on the keyboard and then the later couple on the controller, and I remapped those controllers.
Yeah. And I'm sure you remember from our discussions, I was playing on controller the whole time, and I had always remapped them, and I was always remapping it to the same thing that you're talking about here.
Turbo buttons are kind of a thing of the past.
So this isn't what you think it is. I was referencing a very specific game that has a turbo feature.
Yes,
in the game.
It doesn't. It does now.
Although it does work quite a bit like what you're thinking of a turbo button, except it turbos the entire game, including like animation speeds and everything. It just runs everything at 3 or a configurable.
So I noticed I sent you a picture of the Retro Fighters, and this is not an endorsement. I haven't even tried the controller yet, but I'm just so people can find what I'm talking about. Retro Fighters Brawler 64 is the name of this bad boy, I guess is what you'll call it. It's a reimagined Nintendo 64 controller with the buttons moved around. I'm very excited to try to play a game with it because it moves things into positions that are like a modern controller
for human beings instead of aliens like the N64 controller.
I did confirm both of those triggers on the bottom are Z either side. That
made sense.
Right, it had to be right.
But I didn't notice before, and I notice it. And the Hori Split Pad Pro that I have does this, and I had maybe a Battle Pad from Hori for the GameCube with the turbo button. I don't think I've ever actually used the turbo button for anything.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't think of a case where I would have wanted to turbo a button.
So I only have a few limited examples where I've ever used it. All of them are for retro games, like retro games, right? Old games, old shooters,
Galaga.
Stuff like that, where I don't want to be hammering that button. I just want to hold it and have it fire as fast as possible. Or like old Street Fighter 2, where E Honda's attack, the 100-hand slap, goes literally as fast as you can press the button.
Yep.
That was how I beat all the computers in that game when I used to play it.
Trying to think what I used it on. Mega Man X for me, because it's just constant. It's constant bullet stream in that.
Oh yeah, because you have to press it all the time. Yeah.
Yep. Those are the ones where I have used turbos.
I wonder. I do have the
modern games.
I have the Mega Man collections on the Switch, so maybe I'll try out the turbo button when I'm playing that.
Yeah, and I bet depending on which Mega Man games those are, like certainly it'll help you on some of them, just because like it'll just like reduce fatigue in your hand if nothing else.
So you hold the button and it presses the button a bazillion times for you, or you just press it once and it presses it until you press it again?
The one I had a switch on it, and you could put it into either mode. It had like 3 positions. You could turn it off. You could have it on, and then you could have it in toggle.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and those are the ones that similar to the one that I used back in the day. It was like you would click it over to on, and then any button you hit was being spammed 10,000 times or whatever.
Cool. Yeah. So, man, I think we finally come to the end-ish of controllers. I will report back separately about these other controllers I am trying out. And that'll be like little miniature featurettes or whatever, but they're not going to fit in here because I don't have time to plug in my N64 right now and try out the Xbox controller right now and you know what I mean?
Gotta draw the line
yeah,
somewhere.
I mean, they're here. I'll try them out and we'll talk about them when I do, and let's see what the differences were. I'm most scared to put the Elite up against the Scuff. That's what I'm most scared for. I'm gonna feel like being at a wine tasting and you're already 4 wines in and you're like, yeah, everything's good. Comparing the Titans here. But if anybody else had comments on, they wanted to hear more about the split pad. I like it in general. I don't love some stuff about it. That stick is real sloppy. The Pro controller is much better on the stick. But if anybody wants to hear about the Hori switch pad or JJ's opinion on Call of Duty layouts or Michael's layout for Celeste, where would they send those?
You can send those to podcast@weweregamers.com. We are interested in people's opinions about controllers, so please send that stuff in. It is interesting to me, at least.
There's just an infinite world of it. There's everything from many, many companies making $30 controllers for everything to the $200 ones.
So yeah, please send us all the interesting stuff that you folks out there do with them. We're highly curious. If you want to reach us on social media, you can find us at We Were Gamers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the various places. And follow us on YouTube. If you search for We Were Gamers, all one word, subscribe, get that little bell. You'll be notified every time a new podcast comes up. That's good stuff.
Yeah, we were off last week. But as a reminder, I think this Friday, let's see, what's the date? Yes, this Friday, there will be a new episode of Subspace Transmissions that will be live. Yes. And it's about JJ.
It's about the Star Trek, the original series episode, All Our Yesterdays.
So if you want to rewatch that before you listen to that podcast for all the 5 points of plot that would be spoiled for you.
There is season 3, episode 23 for folks out there looking for it.
Man, that is one of the few. Something about season 3 of Star Trek is just like, here are the 5 points of plot.
We got into it, folks. If you want to know what happened, season 3 of the original series was fractious, I think. Yes. In
every sense,
kindest
in
terms.
Every sense of the word fractious.
I believe it was outright hostile between various cast members at various points. So
interesting discussion had there about more than just that episode. So that was fun.
Yeah, the episode was sort of the entry into the discourse, not really anything deep going on there necessarily.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna crack open this Elite. That's what I'm gonna do. That's my night.
Cracking a cold Elite with the boys.
You named the pod after the pod ended.